We're 100 days away from the scheduled start of college football, and of course, all hoping that they can come out and play so long as it's safe to do so. The Ohio State Athletic Director Gene Smith told reporters yesterday the Buckeyes are going to be allowed to return to campus for voluntary workouts starting on June 8th, and they've been putting a lot of time and energy and thought into how they're going to handle it.
Well, obviously, we're fortunate with 100,000 seats in the stadium. I mean, of course, that wouldn't be true across the country because of capacity, but I think we can get there. We have played a little bit with the social distancing concept, and we know that probably would take us down south of 30,000 fans in the stands, actually closer to 20 to 22. So we've played with that a little bit as a framework to start as we move forward and think about what we ultimately be allowed to do.
So that's what he said, and then a little later in the day, he tweeted a clarification saying the number of fans we could host in Ohio Stadium this fall under physical distance guidelines could be as low as 22,000, but also maybe as many as 40 to 50,000 if guidelines are relaxed. And I think that's just an indication of just how much this is all floating. On any given day, the information changes all the time, and compiling all of it for us is our Heather Dinich, who rejoins us here. So what do we make of that? What should we take away from what they said at Ohio State yesterday, Heather?
Well, I think it's the first steps in having athletes get back in shape for college football. And if the season is going to start on August 29th, most people have told me they need 6 to 8 weeks. So here's the first baby step in that process. But Gene Smith gave specific information as to how they're going to help protect those athletes. You're going to have 9 or 10 players in the weight room at a time. The facilities will also be limited. They're going to have to sign up before they walk in there. Once those players get their workouts in and leave, they're going to disinfect it before the next group of players comes in. So he's hoping to get about 50 athletes in there in a day between the two facilities that they can use.
All right, that's just an indication of what it is we're dealing with. 3 months from the start of the season and about 1 month from what you're saying they would need to sort of get in and get ramped up to be moving. And I know you put this piece together yesterday that you talked to so many different people. What are you hearing as you speak to the conference commissioners and others? What are you hearing that's significant for the fans out there?
Well, as far as them being allowed in stands or the football season start?
Whatever it is, whatever you think the fans need to know from the people you've been talking to.
Well, I think there are two things. One is that everyone wants college football, obviously, to begin, but it's so important that people remember there are so many uncertainties. And I know fans don't want to hear that, but those are the honest-to-goodness answers, because right now they don't know what's going to happen if a player tests positive. I'll give you a very specific example for fans to imagine this. If there is a quarterback that tests positive, who all has he been in contact with? Most likely every other quarterback in the team meeting room, which are typically pretty small, but they'd probably space them out, right? Probably the offensive coordinator, who might be the quarterback coach. So what do you do with that? Does that wipe out your entire depth chart? For 2 weeks? Do you have to forfeit a game? If you forfeit a game, what does that look like to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee if Ohio State goes 10-0 playing 10 games and Alabama goes, I don't know, 12 or 10-2, right? They play a full schedule with 2 fewer games. So there are a lot of questions about logistics, about testing, feasibility of testing that people don't have answers for right now. So these voluntary workouts are an important step, but they are, again, a very small step. And I thought Oklahoma Athletic Director Joe Castiglione said it perfectly when he said to me, he said, Heather, I wish everybody would stop talking about getting back to normal because it's never going to be normal again.
What are your thoughts as we try and work our way 100 days from now towards the start of an actual college football season?
Well, obviously it's exciting because we start talking about football and we start talking about normalcy. And listen, when you're a player, and Des can speak to this too, like you want to play. I mean, that's what you went to school for. I didn't go to the University of Georgia to go get an education. I went there as part of the education, but man, I wanted to play football. And that was the most important thing to me. So I think getting back to some normalcy for that was a huge part of it. But here's the thing, Greeny, when you look at players you expect a huge jump from one year to the next. And I think this is definitely going to stunt the growth of a lot of teams, a lot of players, a lot of leadership. So this is definitely taking a lot of time, and people have been away from it, and they've been trying to find ways to entertain themselves and work out themselves and do the best they can. And I think if you ask these players, they're pretty daggum excited to be back at it.
I would think, yeah. And Laura's told us that she hasn't heard from a player yet that doesn't want to play. How about you, Des? If you're a player, how are you approaching this, and how should the families be approaching it?
You know, what's interesting, Green, is I've been listening to a lot of people talk about this for the past couple of weeks, and you hear reports coming from commissioners, from coaches, and, of course, from players. But the one voice that you never really hear from are the players' parents. And David, I know David's a parent. David was raised by some strong parents. We've had countless conversations on the game day bus about his mom. I was raised by a very strong dad. And I tell you what, there are a bunch of decisions that are made that a parent may defer to a college coach or the administration, but the safety and health of their child isn't one of them. It isn't amongst them. So what I'm trying to tell you is, you have to see what the parents are thinking in this scenario, because all the players want to play. There's no doubt about that. It's like telling me I got a nose on my face. Of course the players want to get out there and play. But when it comes to safety and health, you have to talk to the parents. I spoke to a couple of parents this week. Matter of fact, one told me, Desmond, if I'm not comfortable with the protocol that the university, that my school is going to implement as far as my child's safety and health is concerned, then there's a chance that he will not be on the field. And then another thing, a lot of these stadiums, they're going to operate at maybe 20 to 30% capacity, meaning some of these parents may not be able to go into the stands. They may not be able to go to games. How do you pick and choose who's going to be allowed in these games? My dad used to drive up from Cleveland to Ann Arbor every Saturday to support his son. All I know is that the parents are going to be the ones that's going to ultimately make the decisions as far as their child's safety and health are concerned.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.